The question I have for you, Dr. Dodge, who is this book for, Tim's story? What should people take away from the book after reading it?
Uh, well, this book is it's a combination. It's a unique combination. It's a combination of an autobiography, a brief autobiography,
Mm-hmm.
my autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I was Tim. I make that clear at about the 10th page.
Mm-hmm.
My nickname as a child was Tim.
Okay.
Because my mother's name was Jonas. I don't know why they didn't name me Tim, but that was my nickname as a child. Then when I went to school, they had to change it. They had to start calling me Edward. So I was Tim. And so it's autobiography. It's a health manual. I provide health insights and recommendations throughout the book. Several chapters dedicated to that. And it's also a spiritual, the importance of a spiritual orientation in life. And by spiritual, I want to make sure that any listeners would understand. I don't mean religious. Religion can teach spiritual values, but by spiritual, I mean values like love, joy, peace, and so forth, that are they're qualities of the spirit that everybody has. Mm-hmm. Tim's story goes into the fact that we are beings of energy. Our universe is a universal of energy. Max Planck, the Nobel Prize winning physicist of 100 some years ago, said 100 years ago, there is no matter as such. We are bundles of energy, because at a subatomic level, even rocks are mostly space. They're space with the energy tying the little electrons and the nucleus together, and it's the energy that is the source of the matter. Mm-hmm. And so we are energetic beings, and the qualities of the spirit are very important. If you understand that we are beings of energy, qualities of the spirit like love and peace are so important in making sure that our energy that we express and that we have is a clean energy. So the book is a combination of a autobiography, health manual, and just a spiritual view of health. When you have a spiritual view of health, it's empowering because you realize the materialist says that the body is all there is. The brain, when the brain dies, the consciousness is just a function of the brain. And when the brain dies, that's the end and that's all there is to it. And a spiritual outlook says, no, there's a greater consciousness, and we connect with that greater consciousness. Our minds connect with that greater consciousness. And the consciousness lives on after our death. Our bodies are vehicles for our beings. We are not our bodies. And that is such an important point, because if people understood that our bodies are vehicles, we need to take good care of our vehicles. When you have a car, you want to take good care of it to make sure it lasts as long as it can. Mm-hmm. But the spirit inside of you is not material. It's spiritual, and that lives on. There's Dr. Raymond Moody has written about near-death experiences, his famous Life After Life book, and then now he's written about 13 best-selling books. Most recently, he's been writing about shared death experiences, and that is where a hospice worker, for instance, working with a patient who's dying in a hospice situation, at the end of life, people often have a vision that brings clarity to them in the last minute or two of life. They may be have dementia, but in the last minute or two of life, they become clear. They see a vision of someone on the other side who is welcoming them. And the shared death experience is when the hospice worker or the health caretaker is aware of that vision on the other side, also is aware of that welcoming presence. Mm-hmm. And so he's got a fascinating set of books on shared death experiences that is powerful. So that brings a whole other dimension into it that I don't really cover in Tim's story, but I wanted to bring it out. That's why a spiritual outlook is so important.
Okay, great. And we're talking before the interview that you also make it very accessible and for the layperson like myself to really absorb these concepts in your book, to make it very easy to take apart and to absorb. And you mentioned that there are several categories of health that all have to be considered, not just one or two. All of them have to be considered. Now, already you stressed how important nutrition is. You shared your own testimony of how powerful nutrition can be as a medicine, as a tool of medicine even. In the book, you also mentioned, from what I recall, you mentioned the importance of exercise, right? And physical activity.
And that's very true. That goes hand in hand with good nutrition. You have to have good exercise. You've got to keep your body moving and working. And so I recommend walking. There's a ton of exercises you can do, all kinds of exercise. Dr. Kenneth Cooper wrote the book Aerobics in around 1970. And it became a worldwide bestseller. And that's what popularized jogging and hiking as good sources of exercise. But his book classifies 50 different kinds of exercise you can do and grades them and their value. The important point is to keep the body moving. If you become a couch potato, you're much more subject to you're much more vulnerable to the Western diseases, all the diseases. We know, with just taking the COVID pandemic, that people who were obese, significantly overweight, are far more vulnerable to the infection than people who were vibrant exercisers. So good nutrition, good exercise go hand in hand, and that is hugely important. And then the third element is hygiene, which we covered really in talking about Ethiopia. You have to have clean habits, clean living, clean water. That's why water is so important.
Right.
And so, and then the final thing that is element that I stress in the book is the importance of relationships. Relationships with other people is much more important than we realize.
And why is that? And why is that?
Well, Dr. Dean Ornish wrote the book Love and Survival. He wrote that about 30 between 30 and 40 years ago. Dean Ornish is famous in medical circles because he is the first physician who proved that you could reverse coronary artery disease through a healthy lifestyle. Before him, they said the only way you could reverse coronary artery disease was with either a stent, placing a surgical stent, or a bypass surgically. And he proved that he has the elements that I talk about: good nutrition, good exercise, graded exercise, good hygiene, and stress, coping with stress. And he went back and then he had group support. He grouped his patients into the groups of 10 or 12, 15 people. And to his surprise, when he went back and reviewed his data several years later, the most powerful factor that favorably influenced his patients was the group, the being in a group with others who cared. Because as they met every week, they began to care about each other. And so he wrote Love and Survival. He did a lot of research on this and researched hundreds of other kinds of diseases, and found that it's the groups that share their experiences are they do much better than people who don't. Mm-hmm. So, and I might just add that the importance of connection is seen through things like Facebook and cell phones. People want to connect with other people. They don't. Connection is very important, and he makes it clear that it's so important to our health, much more important than we realized before that.